All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. We are excited to go through today's webinar. Just general how better reporting can help your profit margins, and we've got Roger with us today, the controller from Jolly Roofing. He's going to give us a little bit of insight in how his company and himself have used ProNovos and how it's made life easier when it comes to reporting or things like that. But Roger, if you want to give a little background on yourself and introduce you to the crowd here.
Oh yeah, thanks, Denver, and I appreciate you having me on. Again, my name is Roger Glaude. I'm the controller here at Jolly Roofing. Been here the last 2.5 years. Before that, when I got out of college, I did public accounting for 3.5 years in the construction space. Made a career switch and became a high school coach and teacher for 5 years, and then got back into the accounting and finance and construction, which led me here at Jolly Roofing. So I kind of have an interesting background. Big numbers person, obviously, and so I do appreciate Denver asking me to kind of do this webinar with him.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to have you, and always good to talk with clients on their experience with the software and just what has made the difference for you guys specifically, right? And I think what the one thing we want to take away from today is that data is only as valuable if it drives decisions, right? We want to be more proactive with the reporting that we have in front of us, and just making better decisions based on the information. So some of the items that we'll cover today, right? What are some of the metrics that are going to be most helpful with tracking job performance? What building reports can look like, and how we can customize the dashboards that exist within ProNovos, or just gain more insight from the existing ones as they stand. But we'll talk through how Roger and the team at Jolly Roofing has kind of made ProNovos into their own version, right? With some of the custom reports that we've put together over the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months. And then we'll talk through some of the cash flow forecasting and how some of those risks can be mitigated through more proactive planning, more visibility into payables, receivables, and kind of managing the company as a whole from there. And then we'll talk through a little bit about just how you can get more out of the data that you guys have. So what I want to start it off here is, and we'll launch a quick poll if you guys don't mind answering this real quick. So the question at hand is, how are you currently creating your financial reports as it relates to monthly, quarterly, yearly reports? Is it going to be strictly within the accounting system? Do you combine it with the accounting system in Excel, or do you have some sort of financial intelligence or BI tool in addition to the accounting system? So I guess, Roger, before you guys came aboard with ProNovos, what was Jolly Roofing? What category did you guys fall in under these three options here?
We probably fell under the middle one there, the combination of the ERP and the Excel. We customized some of the reports in our ERP so we could directly print them from out of the system, but then also used Excel, especially for my WIP report, which I'm sure a lot of people out there don't use their ERPs for their WIP. They probably use Excel if I was to take a poll. But yeah, I think that middle one is probably where we fell before we started utilizing ProNovos.
Yeah, and for those that kind of are in the same boat, but Roger, what did you guys find was some of the most difficult part of having all the information in the accounting system, but then supplementing that with Excel specifically?
So it was the hard part was siloed information, how long it took to like run some reports, and trying to get like we were trying to get certain profit margins by region. We had to run this report, then run this report, then combine the reports, or run Microsoft queries, and all that stuff can just get real cumbersome and slow. It's a real slow process, and so that's what was one of our pain points, was just how slow a lot of the stuff took in trying to compile our data together.
Yeah, I know that taking time to create those reports, especially when you're up against deadlines, or if you're trying to use the magic decoder ring to go through everyone's Excel sheet, because one person may have it one way, another person may have it another way. So Excel is great, but it can lead to some disadvantages as it relates to manually putting those things together and tracking them and making sure that it's all up to date, or just having a more of a structured database to track that kind of information. So what we've seen with a lot of contractors that may not have a financial intelligence tool, or are relying on Excel, or the accounting system, is that, like Roger said, a lot of contractors are dumping information into Excel. It's been around forever. It'll be around forever. It's an easy, learning curve to get information presented in a way. But I think what we've seen is that building those sheets, maintaining them, the integrity of the data that's in there, can really cause some unnecessary time spent using Excel. And I think, Roger, you could probably speak to that with some of the reports, like you said, were taking hours or days or however long that you guys were creating those profitability reports, or regional profit reports, or things like that. So Excel, it's fine, but I think everyone wants to make sure that they have a system in place to track and store that information. So with that being in Excel, you're kind of always, not many times that people are using Excel, they have live data within those sheets. So you're really looking in the rear view mirror as it relates to data, as it relates to the WIP. You're always a week or two or a month behind. So, that's some of the struggles that people come across as they're trying to report on data. And like you said, if it's taken a long time to put those reports together, you're kind of being a bit more reactive than proactive, right? The one size fits all reports, I think that kind of speaks to some ERP systems. Most of the construction accounting systems are built with construction in mind, obviously, but when you're trying to utilize a lot of the standard dashboards or reports that are in there, what I've come to realize over the years is that everyone looks at information a little bit differently from the next, right? So trying to utilize a one report that may fit, electrical contractors and home builders and roofers and everyone else, that it kind of gets difficult when you're trying to customize those types of reports. So, Roger, you made a point about the siloed information. With the accounting system, with Excel, what was the biggest struggle when people would come to you or others on the team, where you're trying to report on that information and you're having to dig around a whole bunch of different areas for it?
Yeah, it's one of those, when I get asked a question, I like to be able to provide an answer pretty quickly. I don't like to be like, well, let me get back to you on that. And I understand sometimes you have to do that, but it just always seemed like it was like, man, I got to go run this report, wait my 15 minutes because I can't get in my software while the report's running, right? While it's trying to download. Then run another one for 15 minutes, then kind of put them together, get the information, and then finally provide that information. And then, you start getting it so delayed in time. It's almost where by the time you're able to provide the answer to them, it's like they have another new question to go get. And that's where it's just kind of like spinning your wheels a little bit on that. So
Yeah, if there's one question, there's usually a follow-up question, right?
yeah.
So trying to have kind of all that information, readily available, I think is super important for you to do your job, for everyone else to do their job. PMs are trying to get their jobs in order, and the accounting team is trying to manage, invoicing and tracking down change orders, whatever it may be. So, just having that one-stop shop, I think is super critical for, for everyone to be as efficient as possible. When we're talking lack of flexibility, I think it kind of goes hand in hand with, some of the customization stuff that we were talking about before. The ability to create new reports, edit existing ones can usually be a little cumbersome or lack a little bit of functionality within the accounting system. Roger, you mentioned downloading information to Excel or, writing queries to pull that information out, just to get it in a format that that speaks more to how you guys want to see that information, right?
Yeah.
So from the ProNovos side of things, with the ability to customize some of those reports, I guess what were some of the initial, big ticket items you guys were looking to solve?
So for us, it's just the amount of data that we put into our ERPs. So like it took us so long to run reports, and for me to run our monthly bonus reports, it would almost take me 6 hours or so a day just to run those reports. And I promise I'm not making that number up. You can ask my colleagues I work with. Like it's one of those things I would like almost dread it every month, because I was like, for 6 hours I can't work really. I mean, I can print off or do some manual things, but I can't be in our accounting system while it's running. And so just quickly, that 6 hours that it would take just to run the reports, that's not putting them in the spreadsheets that I needed to run the bonus stuff. Now, with us utilizing ProNovos, I can do all of the bonus stuff, upload it into the bank in less than 45 minutes now.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that was just a first, a baby step really for us, just like how impressed we were with how quickly that process could get done. And I know, and the other thing too is, one thing ProNovos did that we really liked is, if you happen to, are interested in them, they'll actually do a demo with your data at your approval, and they'll show you what your data looks like in the demo that they do with you, which I think was super beneficial to us. But what it also made us realize is we didn't use the project manager field in our ERP system at the time, and we started asking the questions. I started asking questions like, why don't we use that? And there wasn't a good answer. So I was like, well, let's pick that field and let's use it. And we use it now for our sales people, because we don't really have project managers per se. So our salespeople kind of do that. And we did that. And so that was another quick win of just us. We weren't fully utilizing our ERP just based on some of the ProNovo stuff that we were doing. So those two things right there, Denver, were just immediate impacts that we saw.
Yeah, I mean, if it's taken 6, 7, 8, 9 hours to build that report, I mean, you're probably just bunkering down for the whole day and
I know.
closing the door, do not disturb. So, having that be able to, be from start to finish 45 minutes, I mean, that's a whole day, back
Yeah.
that you guys get. So, yeah, I mean, it just speaks to kind of how readily available the data can be for you guys, right? Because like you said, you guys have tons of jobs, tons of information. You've been on the accounting system for, a number of years now. So those databases can fill up quickly. And, with how we pull the information, I think it makes it a lot smoother, right?
Oh yeah.
So when we're talking some of the different metrics and, reporting items that everyone looks at to some degree, right? Maybe committed costs aren't super important for those that might not have, subcontractors on the job, or maybe not a whole bunch of big ticket material costs. But, these are kind of some of the big metrics that, as you're looking at profit or, job performance, profit percentage obviously is always number one, right? Are we making money? Right? And we're in the nature of business to make money. So, but some of these other items, over under billing, making sure that we're we're billing our jobs in a timely fashion, that you know, as costs are being incurred on the job, you know, are we billing ahead of schedule? Are we making sure that we're keeping up with those percentages? That way, as we're recognizing revenue on a monthly, quarterly, yearly basis, we've got an accurate representation based on, you know, some of these metrics here. But forecast to complete, whether that's you know, revenue forecasting, whether it's cost forecasting, you know, having some of those tools be readily available within a tool like ProNovos, once again, helps you be a little bit more proactive with, you know, making sure that if we anticipate we're going to spend X number of dollars on a job, that we can, you know, track that data, we can store it, we can report on it. That helps tell the story of the job as we go month by month. And then once you're looking at that kind of information, you can kind of compare that to other jobs of the same nature, right? Because I think that's what everyone strives to have with all of their data, is that we're not just compiling a list of numbers, we're using that data based on trends in history that, you know, we can make informed decisions moving forward, right? So, you know, for some of these items here, Roger, I know, you know, the sales report, bonus reports, you know, what were some of the other types of metrics that, you know, really really made a difference for you guys?
So this kind of falls under the profit percentage. We have a big maintenance department, so we have a big footprint in the country doing service and maintenance work on roofs. And our team has always looked at markup percentage. And markup percentage is it's just your profit divided by the cost instead of the revenue, like your gross margin. And that's how everyone in the company spoke. They spoke the markup percentage language. Well, when I got here, I was like, you know what, we're gonna speak gross margin language. Well, that was silly on my behalf, right? Everyone's speaking markup percentage, so I can speak both languages. So let's just do that. Well, ProNovos and what Denver was able to allow us to do is now on our reporting, it has the markup and the gross margin next to each other. So you're seeing both of them. And for my team that only speaks to the markup percentage, they only see that because that's what they know and that's what they care about. And so, you know, that was big for us. And the other thing too is even the financial statement piece of the ProNovos with just like the quick ratio, the current ratio, the debt to equity ratio, and the graphs, because you can run those on certain time frames. You can run them for the year over year. You can run them monthly, and you can start seeing trends on all those matrix, which I think from in a controller to a CFO role, those are important to look at and kind of be aware of how the company's sitting in that. And instead of just manually having to do that every month in a spreadsheet when you run your financial statements, you get that nice visual graph that I mean, and I know I mentioned like 4 or 5 of those KPIs, but there's a lot more of those out there. And like you said, Denver, that having the ability to look at this stuff in real time has made a huge difference.
Yeah, and I know that you know, we'll take a look here at some of the, you know, because I know you said about the markup percentage. I know the day sales outstanding was very important for you guys as far as, you know, the collections team and making sure that the AR. What have you seen from some of the team members as it relates to kind of having that information a little bit quicker?
So, you know, I'm getting the question now, or I used to get the question, hey, this is my biggest customer. What's my percentage on them? Like, what's my markup look like on them? That's the old school questions I would get. Now I get, hey Roger, over the last 3 months, the margin's kind of going down on this customer. Do you know like why do you think the trend is kind of going down? And so we're actually and I like that question. I think that's great. Like where you're starting to really analyze it and look into it. And so I'm starting to get more of those in detail proactive questions instead of just the reactive questions that you kind of mentioned.
Yeah, and this is an example of some of the, you know, reporting mechanism that Roger's talking about as far as the sales report, right? Obviously, this being in our demo account, we would never show Roger's information on video here. But this is an example of some of the custom reporting that that we've done on top of kind of the standard dashboards here. So like you said, looking at some of the top customers, right?
Yeah.
Including some sort of date range. That way, if we wanted to look over the last 2 years or last 3 years, we can see who are our number one or top 10 customers here, breaking it down per each one of the salesperson, but having that markup percentage, right, readily available, like you said, instead of downloading and doing, a bunch of Excel math each and every month. But this I think has been very, very helpful for the team members. And it's like you said, it's better questions, right? It's not just what is it, it's why is it, right? I think that's the more important takeaway for some of the team members.
Yeah, we've since our salespeople are considered the project managers, like we've slowly rolled out the permission group. So like, for example, Jack Jones would be able to see this, but just for Jack Jones because he has that permission group. And so now he's able to, like, if Denver was to click on Jack Jones here, it would show now you're able to look at the United States. It's you can hover over those states and you can see the percentage in those states. So now you can start asking questions. If it's like, how come I do so well in this part of the country, but not in that part of the country?
Right.
Well, maybe it's because we don't have enough technicians in that part of the country. Again, you start seeing the data like this in real time. You can start asking those questions, and then now you're planning for the future instead of just reacting to what's happened in the past. And that's a big thing for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And just kind of seeing, even, some of these may be simple in nature as far as some of the reports, but it's there, like you have it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important piece, is just, cutting down on time of putting these together and having visual representations of that data to help, confirm some of those theories, right? We know that maybe we're lacking, if we're looking here, hey, in Arkansas, our markup percentage is great. Maybe in Utah, it's not so great. So you can start asking those questions. What can we do better? Is it, more staffing? Is it, whatever
Yeah.
the case may be, right?
And you can even do the same thing if you like, if Denver was to unclick on or click Jack Jones again, unclick him, and then click over here, one of these customers, you start getting the same thing in the States. Like Nabolt's only has jobs in those parts of the country, where you might have some customers that you have multiple states, some margins may be lower in other parts. Again, you're asking those same questions. How come the same customer have that wide of margins? And so you can start asking the stuff and looking at it. And I think for people that do work in more than one state, that is very beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then you can know whether we're chasing work in the right areas, right? Are there
Correct.
different,
Yeah.
union laws or different, billing procedures for those different states? There could be 100 different reasons as to why
Yeah.
those could be, but you have that information to help supplement any sort of theories on, where the performance is for any particular customer, like you said, for the salespeople, for the PMs, whatever it may be. So, utilizing some of those fields out of the accounting system that maybe within the accounting system might not generate a whole lot of functionality, right? Like you said, project manager wasn't something you were using in the accounting system. So, repurposing that into the salesperson to help, bring to light some of, those different metrics for, how they're performing, where their better jobs are at, and tracking it that way. So let me go here. And then, yeah, and this, I think, helps obviously bridge the gap between, the accounting team and the sales team, right? When they're asking the questions on, what's our markup percentages, what customers are we doing, the best around that. But, as we were looking through kind of the sales report, were there any other dashboards or reports within the ProNovos account that, you guys found value in addition to that sales report?
So the customer analysis one too, because that kind of showed that showed us the days sales outstanding by customer. And so, one thing that is cool is you can look at, or we can look at our sales report and you can be like, okay, this customer has a really low margin. And then you go to the customer analysis and you realize, well, this person is on 60-day terms, but they don't pay until 80 days or 85 days. And then you really start asking that question, do we need to have that customer? Are they actually costing us more money than we're making off of them? And so being able to utilize both of those dashboards hand in hand have been really beneficial for us.
Yeah, and I think this is more along the lines of, hey, we're looking at our customer here. We've got 280,000 out there, but they're all, it's within that 60 to 90-day bucket,
Hmm.
right? So as we're
Yeah.
as we're trying to make some decisions, like you said, maybe tough decisions, right? Whether we keep those customers around or not. But as you're looking through here, we can see the aging breakdown as we click through our different customers here, what our average days to pay for that customer. In this case, over the last year, this customer is paying on a 90-day turnaround time, right? So when you start
Yeah.
looking at different reports on profitability or cash flow for the jobs, I think it's easier to have those conversations once you have the data to back it up,
Yeah.
right?
And for our maintenance and service department, that this has been huge. I know for our new construction, it doesn't really work at the same because we have a whole team of people on a job for weeks at a time working. You can't just be like, hey, we didn't get paid, so y'all come back today. Like I know that, I mean, there is ways to kind of do that, but this is more or less we got a customer throughout the country. We have technicians that go to a lot of their different locations and do work. And if we end up spotting like, hey, they're not paying, or it's like they're lag in paying, like, hey, Mr. Salesman, get with your customer, get this worked out. If it doesn't get worked out, we need to have some conversations about that. So that's why it's been really beneficial for us.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think, some of the other things that, we made some changes in the way that you guys report on the data, right?
Yeah.
Was changing how the logic works for looking at these aging buckets based
Oh
on
yeah.
due date, right? As
Yep.
opposed to invoice date. So having that flexibility in how you guys report on that data. So we're not looking at, well, it's 30 days past due, or past the invoice date, but they're on 60-day terms,
Yeah.
right? May
Well,
skew the numbers a little bit.
yeah. So like for us, we have customers that are on 30, on 45, on 60, on 90, and on 105, all for our service department. Well, that gets really convoluted when you're trying to look at a true aging based on invoice date. And that's why we said we're going to look at ours based on the due date. Because if you're looking at it based on the due date, then you're kind of measuring apples to apples when you're starting to look at these things.
Mm,
And that's where Denver and his team were able to change that in the background for us pretty quickly. And so all of our AR stuff now in ProNovos shows as of the due date, which is in line with how we look at our stuff. And I think it was a pretty easy lift for them to kind of do that. And again, makes us be able to look at our stuff in the way that we need to. And it's been great. So
yeah, and I'm sure it helps with the collections team, the invoicing team, when they're comparing notes with the salesperson or maybe some of the other accounting folks. It's just, like you said, apples to apples. If it's, we're looking at days past due, not necessarily days past the invoice date
yeah,
to make sure we're all on the same page.
yeah.
So as we're, talking through this, I think, one of the other action items, or I guess follow-ups, that having these types of reports as we're looking through something like the sales report, customer analysis dashboard, have you noticed any sort of um, I guess behavior changes between some of the different teams, between the salespeople or maybe more of the collections team?
I have. I mean, I think the biggest thing is before we really kind of started letting our sales team kind of see some of this information, they were really just relying on all the tickets they were entering for their work or like with their contracts for the new construction, and then they would just see their monthly bonus sheets come through, didn't have jobs attached, so they're not really sure like how jobs are really kind of doing. And so this year we started doing monthly meetings with our sales team, started giving them access to some of the stuff to look at. And so I've seen like the eagerness, like they're excited about it. Like they're like, having this information, they're like, I can be beneficial with this information instead of like almost feeling like the back office is trying to hide something from them, if you will. It's like, hey, we're trying to be transparent with you. We're trying to all move forward in the same direction. And if providing you this information in real time is going to help us move forward in the right direction, then we're all for it. And to be honest, we've seen huge stride in the right direction when it comes to that. So
Yeah, well, and you guys have control over it too, right?
yeah,
Like you said, if Joe Schmo has access to the system, you've got the permissions in place
yeah,
where, not that some people might say like, oh, you're just hiding other information, kind of keeping the focus on
yeah,
what they're responsible for,
yeah,
right? So, having the control from the accounting side to delegate permissions, based on who the project manager is on the job, or for you guys, the salesperson. Not only can they get in there and see it, but you've got the control to say, well, they just focus on their part of the puzzle, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And I think the biggest takeaway that, as we've rolled out ProNovos with Jolly Roofing, and I know part of the initial sales call that we had with the team over there was, around this customization, right? It was, the owner, the president, everyone, involved on those sales calls. And I remember specifically, I think it was the owner who was like, all right, I want to see put together a report real quick and show me what it looks like. Right. And I think that kind of spoke to some of the initial frustrations you guys had around creating those reports previously. And we showed it off and we put the report together in 5 minutes or so. And, at that point, it seemed like a no brainer for you guys to, to really take the time to learn more about ProNovos and, bring it to Jolly Roofing, right? Because, creating those reports can be time consuming. And I think that's where the ability to customize these reports and dashboards is necessary. I think it's necessary because you don't want to have a very stagnant product or report based on the different needs for each, client or contractor or customer, right? Um, you know, After that call, I mean, what was the conversation like amongst the team, as far as excitement around the product, or, being able to generate those reports kind of on the fly?
Yeah. I mean, once after that call, and which I kind of knew that's the direction I was going to go, everyone was like, I think this makes a lot of logical sense for us. And again, I think we've only really kind of scratched the surface at some of the stuff that we've utilized. I have a long-term plan that I'm probably going to go over towards the end of this call with you, but I think just the fact that you can go in and customize it, because you could have Jolly Roofing, and then you could have Joe Blow Roofing, and we do the exact same thing, the exact same size, but we look at data differently. And having a product where you can customize it and be able to look at it the way that you as a company need to look at it in real time, it was a no-brainer, right? I mean, that's just
Yeah.
how it felt to us anyway when we were having internal discussions about it.
Yeah, and we really take pride in being able to work with anyone that is utilizing ProNovos to, help build a system that's going to work for everybody, right? Obviously, we've got all the out of the box reports and workflows and things like that, but we really take to heart, a lot of the requests and custom nature of the system, because like you said, everyone looks at it differently. So being able to be flexible, to be a little bit creative in how we put these reports together, I think is just super important to make sure that you guys have all of the reports and dashboards and everything like that readily available. But as you guys were rolling this out to the team, what did you find? Um, what did you find that kind of changed with, how the team operated on a day-to-day basis? I know you talked a little bit about, asking those different questions. But what were some of the other items that maybe you kind of saw as you guys rolled this out?
Well, as you know, we're still in the process of still rolling some of the stuff out, which is fantastic. Because I like to think of it as baby steps, taking baby steps and not trying to change this whole cruise ship in one big turn. But um, for me, it's been like the excitement of like instead of like an us versus them kind of mentality that's kind of used to kind of be there. Like, they don't want to give us that because they're hiding this information of, what you hear. But now it's kind of like, okay, they're making strides and trying to provide this information to us, and we're on the same team now. And I really feel that like we're on the same team, and in being on the same team, like I mentioned earlier, those great questions start coming when you can kind of let your guard down and kind of understand, like, man, these people aren't out to get me. Like these are just they're trying to truly give us the tools to be successful, and that's our whole goal. We want to give our team tools to be successful and be proactive in their job instead of getting information 2 or 3 weeks after the month's closed, where now you're just being reactive to the situation.
Right, right. And yeah, and like you said, you want it to be collaborative, right?
Yep.
And making sure that everyone is focused on what's important to them. So having all these different reports that work hand in hand between the WIP report, the customer analysis, any of the other kind of dashboards that you guys can build out. But I think it just helps point everyone in the right direction. And honestly, I always joke, when rolling this out with anyone, that if we could prevent one less phone call a day from the team to the accounting, or accounting to the operations team on status of a job or cash flow positions, or hey, where's this invoice at? Well, we've got the notes in there to kind of store all that. I think is a huge win for everyone to feel self-sufficient, right? And I think that's kind of been a big piece to why ProNovos is successful for a lot of contractors, that it empowers everyone to be able to be self-reliant.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And making sure that with that collaboration, you're not trying to point the finger, right? It's not meant to be a tattletale solution to the salesperson, the project manager, the estimator of the jobs. It's meant to give insights and all right, well, we learned from our mistakes. We saw what happened on this similar job last year, or hey, we're doing all these jobs for this customer and they tend to take a while to pay, or change orders are getting lost, or whatever it is. But I think having a one-stop shop for storing that information, for reporting on that information, I think is just super critical for success within the system. And being able to build it out, be able to change it to the specs that you guys, as a ProNovos user, as someone who's looking to better the company, move forward with new technology, I think it's just super important. But like you said, it is baby steps. You want to make sure that you're not feeling like you're forcing people to use a system that's going to inundate them with more work. Hopefully, the goal is that they can take it upon themselves to find the information, to be proactive and forecast these things out, and just have better insights on everything that relates to their area of expertise.
Yeah. And nobody likes change, right? I mean, that's the big, no one likes change. And so I remember when we first kind of going through the process, it was like, how do you know that those numbers are right? You're right. It's the whole, I mean, a very valid question, right? For people that are like, how do you know those numbers are right? And so being able to, when we first started, me being able to just like prove to them right off the bat, like, hey, this is what ProNova's showing. This is what it looks like in the accounting system. You see those numbers, they match. But kind of going through that. But I mean, that's the first thing. It's like when people are hesitant to change, it's like, how do you know that's going to be right? How do you know that's going to work? And for me to be able to just show them real quickly, and then once they got that trust, I mean, it was like 100% buy-in on that.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, everyone's reluctant to change. I mean, when you hear the question, or when things are going okay, right? When things are going fine, people are like, I don't need a change. It's going okay. But then you ask that question, is okay good enough? Are we
Right,
okay with just being mediocre? And
right.
when we started asking that question, it's like, well, I mean, no, I mean, I guess we'd rather be great. And so, okay, well, if you're going to be great, then you have to change a few things. And so that's, luckily our executive team, we've made that decision that we want to try to be a forward-thinking roofing contractor when it comes to technology. And so we definitely have embraced it.
Yeah, and I know our owner always has a saying that, what doesn't grow, a part of you dies, right? So like
Yeah.
if you're not growing, you're staying where you're at, and that is a good way of looking at it, right? Like making sure that we're improving on areas that we can improve on, right? And just being better than we were last year, last month, 5 years ago. And it just speaks to kind of how ProNovos allows, its users to grow alongside them, right?
Yeah.
As we
Mhm.
roll out more features, you have more available to you. And as you guys grow, you demand more from the product, right? And
Yeah.
being able to tailor those new features, those new reporting needs that you guys have to help that growth,
Yeah.
year over year. So um and you know, looking at some of the hidden cash flow risks, profitability is everything, cash flow is everything as it relates to construction, right?
Hmm.
And you got to be proactive, you got to be ahead of the game, you got to foresee when things are going sideways. And I think what Pronovos aims to be is a system that's going to help protect profits, right? At the end of the day, like whether it's through cost forecasting, whether it's through revenue forecasting, whether it's through cash flow forecasting. I think it helps put everyone in a good position to make good decisions, right? And I
Yeah.
think, with some of the rollout that we've done with Jolly Roof, I know the accounts receivable team has, taken up to some of the reports on the customer, but the AR collections. What have you seen from the team as they've started utilizing those features? Like, are you spotting things quicker? Are you a little bit more in the know on where things stand as it relates to invoicing?
Yeah, so the cash flow forecast feature on ProNovos is a fantastic feature that they have, for me anyway, because the question, to use a product like this, you got to pay money for it. So like how, like justifying the cost of getting ProNovos. Well, I'll tell you, for me, the cash flow forecast is how I justified it. And the reason that I can is because our AR collections team can now go in, they can update the dates of when they think the AR is going to be collected based on conversations that they've had with customers. And so therefore now I'm able to see a truer picture of our cash flow versus the old way. The old way I'd do it is like go look at our trial balance, our cash, what's our AR this week, what's our AP this week, and kind of, manually kind of see what does cash flow look like. But now I can kind of see it, and therefore now I can forecast our uses of line of credit. And sometimes we have to utilize our line of credit for big job invoices that we might not get the draw in for a week or two after that. But I've been able to manage that so much better with the tool like ProNovos, and therefore it saved me time going into the line of credit, which in turn has saved interest on the line of credit, which is for me has how ProNovos has paid for itself just in that feature. If that makes sense. I
Right.
mean, and so, but this cash flow forecast, I mean, it's the way it's set up. It has the AR AP in there for the week, and again, you can go in and click on your AR, and you can change the dates. It doesn't change it in your ERP system, which is great, but you can go and you change your projected payment date, and that moves that. It'll move that draw to a different week or whatever week you pick, and so you get a really true picture of your cash flow, Denver. And that's one thing I actually look at this pretty much every day,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's I mean it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's super beneficial to just have, that collaboration where, if the AR team says, hey,
Yeah.
instead of receiving this payment by August 7th, we're going to say we're going to, get it by the end of the month. Being able to make that change, type in any notes, and then as we're saving those updates in here, we'd be taking those values right out of that week, and now we've split it out to that week in August. So I think, like you said, whether you're making the decision to dip into the line of credit, or hey, we're going to get paid sooner, we can move those things up and kind of know that ahead of time. So I think that is once again, another piece of being proactive rather than reactive, right?
I think so too.
And I think we've got one more here. So, ProNovos just allows you to get more out of the data that is already being stored within the accounting system. I always like to say it's a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of situation, right? You've got the accounting system that stores the information. Great. Usually what we've seen is that the reporting on that data can be a little time consuming or a little, hard to combine a whole bunch of different information into one screen, which is why I think something like that sales report where you've got the monthly or the chart of all the states to see, the salesperson per, each individual state, or, how this customer performs in those different states. But, with ProNovos, you've got the data, right? We store it in a universal data model. So, based on which accounting system you use, it's plug and play, right? And I think that was some of the initial value that you guys saw, was that when we did demo the ProNovos environment to you guys, being able to utilize your data in that demonstration, just speaks to how quickly, one, we can get the data populating into those reports, but two, just, how much easier it makes it to understand the data, because we've simplified the way that we store the information versus the accounting system. And it just makes for a smoother reporting process, monthly process, right?
Yeah.
Making it easy to understand, making it easy to access, I think, is what I've seen be some of the easy wins for ProNovos, because, when we're talking to people that might not be financial experts, according to the books, but, it having visuals, having information readily available. But for you guys, what were some of the easy wins that you guys saw with ProNovos?
Well, the one I already mentioned was just utilizing the project manager in our accounting system, and that was before we even signed on with ProNovos.
Yeah.
But it kind of gave us that quick win. But for real, that the 6 hours to run reports, it wasn't as, it was like a week after we had even signed on with ProNovos, I was already utilizing it to do that stuff because of how much time that saved me. That was a quick win. You can't make them any quicker than that in Denver.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. A week after signing on, you guys are already saving a day a month, or that's huge. Yeah. And I think that's probably the time to value with ProNovos is extremely beneficial, with being able to bring the data in. You're not having to build all these different dashboards and reports from the ground up, because some financial intelligence tools out there, they'll have access to the data, but you still got to build them out, right? And I think that's where we take the initiative to have something in place that you have a starting point, and then you can build on top of that through some of those custom reports and things of that nature. So we'll save a couple minutes here for questions that you guys have. We appreciate, obviously, Roger jumping on the call with us today, and kind of, thank you very much for, sharing your guys's experience with the system, and, what you guys have seen the most benefit from. But if anyone is on the call and, may not be an existing ProNovos user, if I'll throw a poll out there, if you guys are interested in seeing a demo of the system, we'd be more than happy to sit down with you and kind of show off some of the capabilities of the system. And as we alluded to before, if you do like what you see from some of the initial demonstration, we're happy to sync your accounting system into ProNovos, show the power of ProNovos with your data in it prior to any sort of commitment that you guys have, right? I think that was kind of the same experience you guys had, Roger, was being able to see your guys' data before you signed anything, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, one of the big things that's cool about seeing demos is seeing how the product works. But sometimes you get skeptical a little bit because it's like, did they make that demo environment look so pretty just to sell me on that? But now my data is not going to work like that demo data worked, right?
Yeah,
And so
right.
that's where it was neat to have our own data actually in the demo when y'all were going through it with us, because it's not like y'all were like trying to hide anything. It's like,
Right.
this is y'all's data, this is what it would look like. So that's one thing I really liked about that.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got a couple questions here, and then so one of the questions that I see here was, and Roger, I'll gear this towards you. What advice do you have to get buy-in from the operations team to use, a system like ProNovos?
So that's actually something we're currently kind of going through right now. And for us, it's been really just communicating with our operations teams, especially like our supervisors, our superintendents, our field technicians, is like how important the numbers are to their job. So a lot of the stuff that they do, um, a lot of their bonus stuff is tied to their numbers, and so like they've been more apt to be like, I want to have more visuals into like seeing where some of my jobs are versus just like hearing it from us at the end of the month. But I think the excitement, like talking about it with excitement and kind of like showing them that data is not just a spreadsheet. And I know Denver showed some of the dashboards, but there's so many more dashboards that have like the graphs and that have the visuals that people that, you don't have to have a college education to be able to read the data the way that they present it. And so being able to show them that, at least our team, they've been like, man, I like looking at that way better than that spreadsheet that you sent me last week. And
Yeah,
so we've been able to get buy-in through that.
yeah, that's awesome to hear. I think yeah, that's just super. Oh, one question I do have for you, Roger, for maybe any other accounting executives, CFOs, what kind of advice would you have for, other people in a similar role for utilizing a product like ProNovos?
Man, just don't be scared of change. I know that's always the one. And I talked about that earlier is, don't be afraid to like take that step forward and try to like propel your organization in the right direction. I know that everyone gets comfortable in their role, everyone gets comfortable, like we're doing okay. Like I talked about that. We're doing okay, we're doing fine. But my biggest thing is like take that step forward because like you'll never know where you can get if you don't take that step forward. And for us, we were doing fine without this. But we've been able to do so much better now that we have that because we were able to take that step forward. And so that's my biggest thing is just don't be scared to take that step forward and to kind of take that leap of faith, if you will, to because we all have the data's in the ERP system, right? It's in there. It's all in spreadsheets. All of us on this call probably know how to read spreadsheets. It's all the data's there. It just puts it more in such a nice visual that even like we talked about a minute ago, your ops team can be able to fully understand it. And so just being able to take that step forward.
Yeah, 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 that's great advice, great information there. We got another question here. How often does the data refresh in the ProNovos dashboard? So right now, the out of the box nature of the system, all of the information will automatically sync overnight into your ProNovos account. We've rolled out the on-demand sync over the last couple months for a good chunk of our ERP systems that we do integrate with. So, if the once a day sync isn't sufficient, then you have an option to sync that data throughout the day. So if you post payroll, you cut a bunch of checks on a Friday, you can click a button, refresh the data, give it 5-10 minutes maybe to bring all the data in there, and then all of the information from the accounting system will be updated within your ProNovos account.
Yeah, well, I think ours does it like at midnight every night. It syncs like at midnight or something.
Yeah.
And it works for us. We have too much data to try to do it manually. I think I tried to do that one time, and we have so much data that it was just like I just let it do it every night.
Yeah. I think with the nightly sync, I think usually it's going to be sufficient for kind of the reports that the team is looking for. I think just mainly if you're up against a deadline and we made some journal entries or things like that, you have the option to kind of sync that data on demand. So
yeah,
it is something that we're very excited that we've rolled out over the last couple of months to really get the most out of ProNovos, and like I said, that time to value for getting the information as quickly as possible. So I guess, Roger, the last question I'll have for you here, what are some of the next steps for Jolly Roofing in the world of ProNovos? Like what do you guys see long term with this solution?
so here, hopefully here shortly, I'm getting ready to fully implement it with our full collection, our AR collections team. So they're going to be all just utilizing the AR collections there in ProNovos. And then after that, it's going to be getting our general managers. We have 4 different locations. Is going to be getting those general managers in all those 4 locations, only where they can see their location, right? Making sure that the permission stuff is set up correctly, because that's important. Getting those set up. And then finally, it's going to be, instead of every month me sending an email like, hey guys, why are these jobs over 100% billed? Where are we actually at? Is really doing the job reviews in Foundation and actually having those guys go, or sorry, not Foundation, in ProNovos, and doing truly doing the job reviews in there and like updating the estimated cost to complete on their jobs in ProNovos. So now all that stuff's getting done in real time. So we definitely have a roadmap with how we at Jolly Roofing are trying to roll this out. And again, that's just something that we made up. Anyone out there can do it completely different ways. That's just how we've kind of staggered it, Denver.
Yep. And we've got one other question here from one of the participants. The question is, how long did it take to implement ProNovos for Jolly Roofing? And I'm sure that's a two-part question or two-part answer that you may have for this.
So as far as like the implementation process, where Denver, someone from his team gets on with you and they'll go through every dashboard that they have. They'll spend time going through every little dashboard. And it was like twice a week there for I think a month, I think is what we did. But during that time you can run it whenever you want to. That's more or less just kind of training wheels, I guess, on each of the dashboards and really getting you familiar with the platform. But then like I just mentioned, like as far as like in-house implementation, we're just taking it a little bit slower than what some people would. But again, we're doing it that way because of truly getting the 100% buy-in, and this we just feel it's better to do it in that slow, methodical way. But as far as like I said, within a week I was running those reports and that were saving me a ton of time. So I know that as far as I hope that answered your question. Does that kind of makes sense, Denver? I mean, does that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we made the point earlier, like, the day you guys have access to the system, I mean, it's ready to use, right? It's getting you familiar with the data that's available now, with the workflows that, you guys can take advantage of. So, I mean, it's always tricky to say plug and play, right? For any sort of system. But I mean, really it's, the implementation process is more just what can we get the most out of with using ProNovos, right? It's not so much configuring it, when you're rolling out an ERP system, it's going to take months to learn the ins and outs and setup and configurations and things like that. So being able to have it where as soon as you guys have logins to the system, like you can use it, right? You can go through the WIP, you can go through those forecasts, you can, look at all the different dashboards that are, there out of the box. So, that's really the time to value on some of the information here. So one more question came in. And Roger, I think this is geared towards you. Do you use daily reports for the field crews at this point in time out of ProNovos?
Yes, we do. We Denver helped create a custom field report, and those get sent out to our field guys. So again, it was pretty easy. I know it's just and a part of this too is Denver or someone else would show you, like, I have the ability to go in and customize all these things myself if I wanted to. They give you that capability, and it's really not super difficult. I still am in the learning stages of some of that, but it's one of those things that if you're familiar with your data, you're familiar with if you're familiar with like Excel queries too, it makes you can create your own custom dashboards essentially.
Mhm.
Isn't that correct, Denver?
Yep,
So
absolutely. All right. Well, we'll see if we'll give another minute or two if anyone has any last minute questions, but we want to extend our thanks to Roger for sitting down with us and talking about your experience with the system and the rollout of ProNovos to the team. And I think it's been super helpful for those that might be curious on a product like ProNovos, and maybe help confirm some theories on maybe some of our existing clients as they're beginning to roll this out too. So Roger, thank you for joining us today.
no, I appreciate you, Denver. I enjoy getting to work with you on our stuff, so I appreciate you guys asking me.
Yep. All right. Well, you guys are more than welcome to hang around if you guys have questions. If not, we should be doing for some of our existing clients that are utilizing the platform. We'll continue to do our power sessions I think we have one next week, and then if you guys have questions, obviously our contact info is up on the screen here, and don't hesitate to reach out. Roger's more than willing to give any sort of insight outside of what we discussed today if you guys are curious. But if you guys are looking for some more information on the product, reach out. We're more than happy to show off the functionality and see if it makes sense for anyone who might be interested. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions here, so I think we've hit our time for the webinar we had booked off for today. So once again, Roger, thank you for joining, and everyone else, appreciate you listening in. And yeah, we'll see you guys on the next one then.
Thanks, Denver.
All right. Take care, everyone.